So, if you've been keeping up with gaming news throughout E3 2018, then you know that the big game that everyone's talking about right now is Cyberpunk 2077. And so far, impressions are really good. There's some behind the scenes presentations going on. I'm actually going to be part of one on Thursday, so look forward to my impressions on that. And it's just a game that everyone's been looking forward to for so long, and so to finally see it again with a new trailer and actual gameplay, it's pretty amazing. It's been so long, but it's finally here. However, there is one aspect of that game that's causing some controversy, and that is the fact that it's been confirmed that Cyberpunk 2077 is mainly a first-person game. This was something that was rumored with website Game Pressure. They released an article where they said, according to our sources, we have heard that the game is going to be first person. Now, I'd like to point out that I believe I actually broke the story first. There's a video from back in January 16th, 2018, where I talked about how one of my sources told me that the game would now be a first-person shooter, although it was originally planned to be both. The information that I got was that CD Projekt Red recently showed a short demo to both Sony and Microsoft that takes place in first-person mode and features a few enemies, vehicles, and various cutscenes. So the Game Pressure article then later came out on April 28th saying, hey, we have heard it's going to be third person. I heard actually even earlier than January. On January, I presented the information, but I began hearing rumblings about this all the way back in November 2017 when my sources told me that this game might take a first-person shooter route or mainly a first-person perspective. We do know now that there are some things that will shift the perspective from first person to third person, or will allow players to choose which perspective. Things like driving, based on impressions from major outlets, will allow you to pick a perspective. But when it comes to just navigating the environment, gunplay, stuff like that, that's all pretty much going to be in first person. And a lot of people are disappointed, especially coming off of the Witcher series, where you play entirely third person and you get to see your character in conjunction with sort of the lush, beautiful environments, or in the case of Cyberpunk 2077, this very compelling urban setting. A lot of people would have liked to see their character in conjunction with all that. So, yeah, that's been the big topic right now, but this is something that CD Projekt Red has, I guess they expected, they have heard about it, and they responded to it as well via an interview that they did with website IGN. Cyberpunk 2077 lead level designer Peter Gallanser had this to say, I quote, "First and foremost, I really enjoy all the attention the subject is getting because it is important. This has been an educated decision. The first-person point of view is there so you can see things happening up close, and so you can really interact with things in a visceral manner with the game world. It worked out well with our exploration of the genre. Third-person works well in games like The Witcher when you have a lot of motion and movement around you, but when all the things happen to you, from you, within you, first-person point of view is the right choice to take, especially because of the augmentations." Now, I'm not going to say that there isn't truth to what they're saying, but I do feel as though they're not telling the whole truth, and here is why. We know for a fact that their original intention with Cyberpunk 2077 was to allow switching between first person and third person. There's that one PowerPoint slide they showed some years ago, and it promised that this was going to be a first person / third person perspective RPG. So the question is, of course, what happened? Why did that change all of a sudden? You know, you'd figure that even if what they say is true, that first person is the better experience for Cyberpunk, you would think that if they could, they would give players that option, that choice of, do I want to be immersed with my character by seeing through the eyes of my character, or do I want to just pull the camera back and witness my character with the world and all the awesomeness that comes with that? But I think what happened was that, this is what my source told me, the same source who disclosed to me that the game would be a first-person, mainly a first-person game, all the way back in November, and then reiterated that information in January, which was when I released that video. And this was information that was conveyed some time back when I was talking about what's going on behind the scenes with CD Projekt Red, with some employees supposedly not being happy about the working conditions and all that stuff. So they basically told me that the reason this game's taken so long to make is because there was a lot of indecision, there was a lot of scrapping of ideas, redoing things over again, development sort of halting and restarting. And there was also a lot of overambition, and there came a point where they had to cut back on some things because otherwise they were just never going to get this game out. It isn't easy to make a game that works in both first-person and third-person perspective. Even with games like Fallout, even like if you choose to play in third person, some might argue that you're getting, for a lot of the action stuff, the shooting, some might argue you're getting an inferior experience. And the way you play a game changes when you shift perspectives. So that was just something that it seems like had to be sacrificed, that choice, that allowing players to choose between third and first person. In their overambition, when they had to scale back, I feel like they had to choose, okay, we cannot do both. Do we want to make first person or do we want to make third person? We have to choose one. And I think based on their play tests or whatever, in the end, they decided to go with first person because perhaps it was just more immersive that way. And so perhaps there's some truth to what Peter Gallenser is saying, but they would have liked to implement both third person and first person and give us the choice to pick which perspective we want to play in. I think they just had to cut back throughout the game's development because they needed to get this game out at some point. They needed to make progress in the game's development, and I think they had a lot of ambition in doing both perspectives, but they just couldn't match that ambition. I feel like that's more accurate to what actually happened behind the scenes. Now, as for what my opinions are on this being a mainly first-person game, I understand some of the disappointment because I understand the appeal of seeing your character, this character that you customized, that you gave armor and weapons to, and you see it sort of realized within the game itself. Like, there's a satisfaction in seeing your character within the game world. However, based on the impressions that I've read so far about the game, I'm not really terribly worried. It's one little dent in an otherwise what looks to be a very just compelling, pristine, immersive cyberpunk experience. This is Cyberpunk made by CD Projekt Red, and that prospect is still very exciting to me, especially in light of what all these news outlets and content creators and all these people, what they're saying about this game. It's all been very positive. So while I do understand the apprehension of a first-person-centric CD Projekt Red game, I wouldn't count this game out just for that reason. It's okay to feel disappointed, but I wouldn't just look at that one factor and say this game is doomed. That seems ridiculous to me. I myself am going to check out the game on Thursday via a behind-the-scenes presentation. And, if you want to hear it from me, what I think in terms of what they present from a mainly first-person game, a mainly first-person RPG, that's something that I'll be on the lookout for and I'll report back. But for now, all I'll say is just to round things up in terms of the information that I'm presenting here, I'm not saying that CD Projekt Red is lying here. I just think that they're not admitting that they had to cut back on this this thing they wanted to do, where they wanted, if it were up to them, if they found the right formula, they could have made it so that you could choose between third person and first person, they would have done that. It's just that when it came down to it, they were like, we can only afford to do one of these things, and they picked first person because throughout the game's development, they probably felt, first person is the best thing to do for this particular game. It'll be interesting to see what CD Projekt does with a first person only game. they've come a long way as a studio. They have impressed before. They have, we have put our trust in them before, and they have delivered. And given their track record, given their past history, I am bound to do that again. I'm bound to put my trust and faith in them, especially because they are taking their time with this game. They've expressed that they don't want to rush this out. It's out, when it's ready. And they've said a lot of positive things about no DRM on PC, no microtransactions. Are you nuts? That's what they said in the hidden message. They've just expressed all the right things. They've expressed so much passion, and like they actually give a fuck about this project. Despite the understandable disappointment, it's just for me not enough to, to decrease my excitement for this title. But again, I'll take a look at it later this week. I'll report back. In the meantime, there's plenty other impressions out there who will tell you what you need to know. And I guess for now, you'll just have to make your own determination based on what you've read and seen. For now, this is all I have to report. That's what CD Projekt had to say about, or in response to the backlash against the fact that Cyberpunk 2077 has been confirmed to be mainly first person. Let us know in the comments below what your personal take is on the matter. Let us know if this is something that really puts a damper on your hype for this game, or if you're just going to wait and see, or if you like the fact that it's going to focus on first person. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, and for more E3 coverage, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.